Hello, everyone, and welcome to Artists Offstage. This is a web series we started last year where we got to know our resident artists as people beyond just what we see them on stage. And especially, last year, most of our offerings were digital, so we weren't getting a lot of interaction face-to-face with these artists. Hopefully, that's going to start changing this season, especially once we get into the spring part of our season. But today we are talking with Symone Harcum. Welcome, Symone. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So you are our sole new resident artist this year. How does that feel?
It's great, honestly. It's great. It was interesting thinking that I was very much the new girl, but coming in for the first time in person, of course, all masked up, realizing that we're all kind of experiencing some of this stuff for the first time too, as the other resident artists spent most of the season digital last year.
Yeah, there wasn't really a ton of interaction face to face at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking forward to just kind of slowly making our way back to those types of activities.
Sure.
So I always like to start these interviews with a very kind of broad, big question of what is your story?
Okay, well, my story, well, I was born in Texas. I was born in Houston, and I spent maybe 6 years there before my mom moved us to Baltimore. She got a job as an accountant in Baltimore, and she worked that way for up until now. She's still an accountant. I have always been in music because of my mother as well. She was a choir director and has been all my life. I was singing in the church choirs from a very, very, very young age. There are videos to prove it. My country accent, singing in Houston and then again in Baltimore, but this time being the only one with the country accent. Yeah, and so we were in Baltimore. That's where I grew up. Went to the latter part of elementary school, middle, high school in Baltimore. I went to Baltimore City College and I was in the choir there. And really, just fell in. I fell into music like that. I was in choirs all my life. Then I went to Norfolk State in Virginia on a choir scholarship to be a music teacher. I wanted to be a choral director. Yeah. So I did, I finished out that degree in choral conducting. And I started teaching in the school system at Ruffner Middle School in Norfolk, Virginia. Yeah. But during that time, I sang with the Virginia Opera Chorus, which was kind of an interesting story because I had never been to an opera before I started singing with them. My teacher at my teacher at Norfolk State came in during my junior year, I think, and she said, Symone, you should go and audition for the chorus down the street at Virginia Opera. And I was like, why? It's weird. I'm going to be a music teacher. She was like, sure, but you can use an extra check. And I was like, sure, I could. So I went in there and I sang, and they cast me in one show that season that was Pearl Fishers. And that was the first show that I was in before I had ever, seen an opera. And it was magical,
Yeah,
really. And I guess that's my story. It's kind of all, the rest is history. I fell into opera and I continued on that path.
Yeah, that's so interesting because you so often hear, people who come into a performing career in opera of like having grown up watching operas or having some sort of like experience as an audience member first and then becoming interested in that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that for you kind of happened the opposite.
Yeah, it was. I was comfortable on stage. I had done musical theater for years when I was young, I think I was 6 or 7. my grandparents in Texas put me in the Ensemble Theater of Houston, Texas, and that was a summer program for students. And the story goes that whether it was 6 or 7, I was a year too young to go in.
Okay.
I think it was 6. I think the year was 7, like the age was 7 and I was 6. And my grandmother, who is known to be a very persistent woman, my dad's mom, she goes in with me and she says, you know, I want to put my grandchild in this program. And they were like, oh, well, you know, she's too young. And she was like, why do you need to be 7? And they were like, because they need to be able to read. And she said, well, she can read. So she was like, go ahead and read for her. So she kind of forced them to give me an audition. forced them to allow me to prove that I could read. And my first show was the narrator for the Velveteen Rabbit. Okay. And they put me in all black. I had no staging. I sat on the side of the stage on top of one of those big amps, you know, and I just recited my lines from there. And that was my work. Yeah. And so every single year until college, I was back at the Ensemble Theater. We did tons of musicals there. Yeah.
So after you took part in the Pearl Fishers at Virginia Opera, is that kind of when you decided to make the change to pursuing a career in opera or become an opera singer?
No, I was very content being a chorister at Virginia Opera for sure. As I continued that year, I sang Pearl Fishers, and I was still in college. I think it was my senior year of college. I sang Pearl Fishers, and then they picked up a couple more shows from an opera company that had gone under. So after Pearl Fishers, they cast me in Camelot. And so I did it there. And from that year on, the next few years, I was cast in every chorus show. Maybe 1 or 2, I don't know. And so I sang there for 4 years total. So by the time my 3rd year came around, my teacher and the conductor there at Virginia Opera and the coach, they were all kind of really encouraging me to go to school, like go back for vocal performance. And I was always going to go back to school, but it would be for educational leadership or something like that. I was moving more into education. And I was like, okay. And I remember one year, the year before I actually auditioned, I had to break the news to them around Thanksgiving that I wasn't gonna audition. And I was like, I know everybody was doing it, and I looked at all the applications and everything, and I had everything ready. We were like having voice lessons and things, getting ready for auditions. And I was like, I'm not gonna do it, you know? And it was, for me, it was that I couldn't leave my students. I didn't want to leave my students. I'd only been teaching for 2 years at the time, or it was my 2nd year of teaching at the time. And I didn't even get a whole class through, you know, the school system. And I felt very strongly about that. But also, you know, I wasn't completely convinced about the whole opera as a career. They all almost disowned me. It was not a great reception. Like, seriously. And so I was like, okay, I will audition. I will apply next year. And so the next year I did, and I got into Peabody. And I waited until the very, 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 very last moment to accept. I mean, the very last moment. And so it was actually an email from my teacher, Denise Graves, who was at Peabody at the time, and I was accepted into her studio. It was an email from her that got me like, all right, fine.
Yeah, she kind of has a little bit of that power, right?
A little bit of it. I mean, honestly, I didn't know who she was. Yeah, I just really, I knew that she was, I knew that she could sing because I obviously heard her on YouTube. I didn't have an idea of her, the magnitude of her at that point. I just knew that she was a Black lady at Peabody, and I felt safe in that way. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, but no, she is very persuasive. I will say that.
So you mentioned a little bit about like your childhood experiences about being in this summer program and being in choirs. Like, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up, when you were a child?
When I was a child, I thought I was going to be a veterinarian.
Ah,
Uh-huh. But
uh-huh.
I very soon realized that I was afraid of like all animals. I mean, I'm okay with dogs. I love dogs.
Yeah.
Anything else, you could keep it. Cats, can't stand them. They are awful. They're just frightening creatures. The birds,
No.
insane creatures. I can't. I just don't understand. And anything else you really can't like pet, so it doesn't matter. You
True.
know, like I
Yeah.
get like people have like snakes and things like that. It's
Oh no. Nope.
I kind of get it. I'm not I'm not as afraid of snakes as I am afraid of cats and birds, but I don't know. You can't pet it. It's like
Yeah.
a fish. I don't know. I don't.
Right.
It's not gonna get me putting down people's animals, putting down people's pet friends, but it's a dog for me and nothing. I'm pretty sure at some point I wanted to be a scientist.
Hmm. Any
Yeah.
particular kind of scientist?
No, but I was really into those science kits as
Yes.
a kid, you know?
Oh yeah.
And when those ran out, I had bunk beds, and they took down the bunk beds when I got a little older.
Uh-huh.
And so there was like 2 beds in the room and a radiator in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't get all the way back to the wall. So what that meant was that behind each bed, I had a little cove,
Hmm.
little space back there that I could
Mm-hmm.
jump in there, and I had like a reading nook.
Love that.
Yes. And also, it's gross. My science experiments, I would put like some things and try to make like science things. It really was just a cup of junk
Yeah.
and like water in the back of my room. It's gross. It's really gross now that I think about it. But that was my scientist. You know, I was going to be a scientist like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hilarious. So who would you say have been your biggest cheerleaders throughout your life?
Um, my biggest cheerleaders, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very blessed to have a huge community of people around me and throughout my life. I have a huge family, dysfunctional family, a lot of like, you know, step this and step that, and you know, but we're all still very close. I know each side of that. So there's that. And also the church. My mom we were in the church from when I was like very, very young. And those church families of those 3 churches, I'll say, the one in Texas, in Houston, where I was born, the one when we first got to Baltimore, and my church now.
Mm-hmm.
These people who turned out to be like my mom's friends from church, and their children I grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, have been family for me since the very beginning. And so I think I've been lucky in that way. Everybody's around, everybody's coming. Everybody is coming to Carmen. They're like, when is it? You know, whether or not I've seen them or not, they're like, what's going on? You know. So I feel very supported. I feel like I have a lot of cheerleaders.
Mm-hmm.
We had I was with the 105 Voices of History National HBCU Choir.
Okay.
It's not Voices of History. I think I'm putting that together with something else. 105 Voices National HBCU Choir. And we had a concert at the Kennedy Center when I was in school. I was in school in Virginia at the time. And so we come together at the Kennedy Center, and I don't know who's there. I didn't know a lot of people were there, but my mom had apparently brought a bunch of people from church, a bunch of the young adults who I used to sing with before I went to college. And there I was sitting there with 105 people on stage, and there were scholarships given out. And they say, they go down the list of the scholarships, and then they say, in this scholarship, it was like $5,000 or something, goes to Symone Harcum.
Oh no.
And I was like, I wasn't listening. It was a long concert. I wasn't paying attention, didn't expect to win any type of scholarship. And they did not say my name, okay?
Right.
And so I was like zoned out, and then I feel the spotlight come on me. And then I hear, oh, 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 ah! And so like a huge group of people start screaming in the Kennedy Center, like literally screaming. And I'm like, what's happening? And so, yeah, I won the scholarship, thanks. Okay. But then I realized that there's a group of people that I really haven't, most of them I hadn't seen in, quite a while, coming to support me in this. So it's kind of like that, they're family for life, like they're cheerleaders for life. And vice versa. I love
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in our last conversation, it didn't come up that you had been Denise's student. How do you feel about Carmen and kind of all of that situation?
I try not to say it. I think I succeeded in our last conversation and this conversation. I mean, I'm very excited. Like, I'm very excited about it. A little bit nervous because when you're in school, that's one thing. You have your teacher there, and you lean on them. And I lean on her still quite a lot. The truth is that when I go into a professional setting, my teacher isn't there, and that allows me a lot of freedom, and she and my other teacher are the people that I'm still today the most nervous in front of. Okay. I'm just nervous. Because I know we're all on the same page about what I'm supposed to be doing, or what we know I'm supposed to be doing. So I don't know. It's kind of, I think when I'm not nervous in front of them, it's time for me to have a new teacher, honestly. So this is good for me. But it's gonna be great. She's brilliant. Like, she's brilliant. She's gonna be the most qualified person in that room to talk about anything Carmen. And she's like, it's there. But I feel like I will probably have to find some sort of rhythm in figuring out who's in the room, like my teacher or my director. But it'll be, I think it's gonna be awesome. I do.
Yeah, it's gonna be incredible. And for folks who don't maybe know, like, Denise Graves is one of the most, if not the most famous Carmen of all time. And she's going to be directing our Carmen that's in May.
I'm surprised that this has not happened yet. Like, it's so obvious.
Yeah. So I'm back to you. In your experience, what has been so far the biggest challenge and maybe the biggest reward of pursuing an opera career?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for sure is me, the body, the voice. And the fact that it's such an internal skill. It's not like a trumpet or an instrument
that's like outside of you.
Yeah, everything that happens inside of you affects your voice, and the way that you translate what you know about the music, whatever the piece is, the technical bits, into practice. So one stray thought can rip through, any sort of technique I have at some point, So I think that is really the most challenging part of it, is managing the mental game. I think I said the biggest challenge that I have yet to have was this summer at Des Moines. Where I was covering Lisa and Queen of Spades in Russian. And I had never done Russian before at all. A lot of my colleagues had done like art songs or things like that. And I've been to Russian concerts and things like that, but I I had never done it. And so to learn that role it was one of the most daunting experiences that I've ever had. And at one point I thought that I could not do it. Like genuinely, I was like, I'm gonna have to call them and say, I can't do this, because there was so much going on in my head and it was impacting my voice. And it was making me think that at the bare minimum, I could not sing the role because my voice was not up to it. But that wasn't the case. It was that I was navigating so much mentally that it was making, I wasn't in a space where I could be stable in my voice. Because I did also learn that I work very, like one of the first building blocks for me is language. And when I didn't understand the language or couldn't do it, I couldn't repeat it perfectly, even slowly, it threw off everything else. So all of a sudden I felt like I couldn't learn the notes either. Even those were foreign to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't settle into the music and it derailed everything. So now everything's kind of all over the place. So I can't tell you how I figured it out. I can. No, I can't. I can't. It was wild. It was the Lord. I got there and I got there and I had done, I think, everything I possibly could to prepare, but it was underprepared. I don't think I had the resources to really, really figure it out, And so when I got there, the first thing that happened with Queen of Spades was that I sat in I also sang Masha. It's a very small role, and I had that was fine. So we did the sing through with all the principals, and I heard Sarah Gartland singing this for the first time in the room. It was also one of the first times I'd heard, because it was after COVID. So we were all in the room singing, and I had heard this voice, like singing in this, I had heard this music like in the room with me. It was huge. It was a transformative experience, honestly. But just hearing her and her artistry on this role that I was struggling so much with, it grounded me in a way that I didn't expect to be grounded. It inspired me. I heard how she put it all together. And I think I could really work off of that. So that was wonderful. Also hearing the full thing with everybody in the room excited me about it. Yeah. And it connected some of the weird pieces that my brain had jumbled up this whole work into. It was like, oh, it does make sense. I get it.
Yeah.
And the coaches, they, I think once they realized how much we were kind of like, this is wild. Like, this is a huge thing for us as young artists. Yeah. Once they realized it, that was it. They were like, we can be in here every day if you need to. And those coaches and the people at Des Moines, I think that they really supported me in that. And I think my colleagues too. And we ended up being able to put on a really good cover run. So I'm happy about that. But once that was finished, I felt very rewarded. Yes. Yeah, it's nothing like that.
It's interesting how the challenges are often very much tied to the rewards themselves as well.
For sure. I mean, I think we feel rewarded on a lot of things. I sing, we sing roles, we get them, we learn them, we sing them, and it's a great show, and we're like, yes, But it's nothing like when something literally like you are dragged to that performance and then stand up and do it. That's great. And I think I feel very lucky to have had that experience, at this stage, and with low stakes as a cover, and low stakes, but stakes, because there were some times where people say, do you want us to come to the cover run? I'm like, yeah. I'm the one that says yes. I don't care who it is. The principals were asking, you want us to come? Yeah. Because if I The whole point is that somebody's going to see it, whether I stand up and do it or I fall flat on my face. Somebody needs to see it, because otherwise there's no lesson in it, or there's no,
Yeah.
it doesn't fall, like the meaning of that doesn't fall.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, there's no point in being ashamed of what you worked on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yep. So outside of kind of the singing world, I've been having the other resident artists kind of complete the phrase, when I am not working, and you can take that as, rehearsing or practicing or whatever that means for you. When I am not working, I am usually blank.
When I am not working, I am usually, it's weird because I was going to say creating, but that is my work. But I'm usually building something, starting on some sort of project.
Okay.
From a small project like a puzzle. I do a lot of puzzles. To, and like building a shelf or something like that.
Yeah. Like DIY projects.
Yeah, I like to I like to create things. I like to cook. I'm gonna take up baking because I don't think I'm a very good baker, even though during the pandemic I successfully baked a couple cakes. They were both very wrong, but they were both very good.
I mean, cake is cake.
I don't like reading instructions.
Yeah.
I don't like recipes. I look at it once and I'm like, okay, I get it. And I'm like, okay, let me just do things. So because it kind of takes it's more like, I don't know. It's not a creation task. It's kind of like a, let me just, I don't know what it is. Anyway, so which is why baking is difficult, because I really don't understand the chemistry of baking, So my cake is going to be powder if I don't understand it and I don't read the instructions. So I'm going to take that up. I play Animal Crossing. I play video games a lot. It's either like war games, like shooting games. I'm sorry, everybody. Because they really, honestly, things like that help me focus.
Okay.
I learned like all of Figaro while playing Call of Duty.
Nice.
And maybe not learned it, like I did take my time at the piano, obviously, but I memorized it playing Call of Duty, because you do something so mindless, and it occupies the side of your brain that can get distracted so that you can focus on what's happening. So I do that. But Animal Crossing, I'm building my island. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. The theme is opera scenes.
It's fitting.
Very unoriginal if you think about it.
So 2 related questions to your non-opera interests. One, what has been like your DIY project that you're most proud of?
I made a skirt. It's not a DIY project. Technically, it's only sewing. But I made it. I wish I had it with me. Also didn't follow any instructions. No instructions. I had my mother's sewing machine, which she took back. I don't know why, because she has yet to make anything on it, but it's not the point. She keeps saying, I'm gonna make something tomorrow, Symone. I'm like, can you please send me a sewing? I'm making something tomorrow. Anyway, I got a buttload of fabric from Joann's Fabrics. And I brought it back and I decided that I wanted a full length, like pleated, I don't even know if they're called pleated. I think they're called like box pleats.
Okay.
I don't know.
I wouldn't.
Skirt. No pattern, no nothing. So I had to invent this skirt, basically. Like invent the math. Ridiculous. I'm sitting there like dividing, like if I want the pleat to be 3 inches, then I need 3 inches here and then 2-inch folds. But it wasn't 2-inch folds because it was 1.5 inch because the fold needed to be the same. It was a lot. The point is, I had like this sheet of paper, the longest sheet of paper imaginable, with like all of it mapped out.
Uh-huh.
And I had to try again so many times because my math was wrong and the skirt was wrong. I had to figure it all out. But it's a great skirt.
Yeah. And
My
it
I
probably
was
is even more rewarding because like you made it. So like there's like some pride attached to it.
I struggled through it, and that's the point. I think I need the struggle, which is why I don't like reading directions. I need to figure it out.
So my other related question was, what is the best thing that you cook?
The best thing that I cook. Ooh, what is the best? Steak. I can make a steak. I will make you a steak, and the temperatures are right too.
Yeah.
I will give you a steak. Also, there's this chicken, like it's stuffed chicken
Mm-hmm.
and stuffed with feta and like spinach and like herbs and stuff and wrapped in prosciutto.
Okay. Yes.
Right there.
Oh yeah.
Always on point. I burned it. I didn't burn it. I overcooked it one time. It was very, very sad. But I've made it like more times than that. So the percentage is really low.
Also, my last question.
Omelet. Sorry.
Omelets.
Take it away. Omelet is the best thing that I make because you'll never have a better omelet than mine. The end.
Okay, what is in the omelet?
Doesn't matter. It's just
okay.
It's the process and the ritual of cooking it. My omelet, it normally has sausage, a spicy sausage, mushrooms, spinach, onions, and that's it. And cheese, of course. Yes. That's normally my omelet. Sometimes I take the sausage out and just have the mushrooms, cheese, and spinach and whatnot. But you have to cook. You have to cook the inside ingredients first and separately.
Yes.
And take it out and then have the right size pan and make sure that you're with it the whole time. Okay. You have to pull it so that, you know, it's not like a thick stacked omelet. No, you don't want that. You want to make sure that each part of the egg gets onto the pan. It's a thing. Yeah,
it's a process. It's a very delicate process too.
It's a very delicate process, and like it's important.
Yeah. So my last question for you today is, where are you currently finding joy and inspiration?
Where am I currently finding joy and inspiration? I think I had an answer for this the other day, but it might be different today. No, I think my colleagues. It's the people around me. You know, we all have our good days and bad days.
As anyone does.
As anyone does. And their artistry reminds me of why I'm here, you know. And I think as artists, we put out so much, you know, and it's sometimes what you feel about a performance that you gave is like so drastically different from what everybody gets from it. Like you may have been like very, very, very tired and over it, and so many things have happened for that performance, but what is portrayed is something beautiful. And I think it's helpful when you're around artists that make you the audience member, that give you that gift that you give everybody else, you know, because we all need it. So yeah, I think that. And, you know, of course, still joy in the gains, in those wins, right? Yeah. I had a really awful audition a few weeks ago. Awful, really the worst audition ever. Maybe not the worst, top 3. And then this weekend, I had a great audition, like a really, really great one. And to have that after that awful audition, it's this, I think it's the same formula as the struggling through something, and then the gain being meaning a lot more, like meaning that much more because of the struggle. I think that was the case, right? Because one bad audition can throw off your whole season, right? Because you're always thinking about the last time you were in there.
Oh, yeah.
But to get over that hump is a huge feat and a motivator.
Yeah, and I have to say, one of my worst auditions that I can remember was for Minnesota Opera back in, 10 years ago or something like that.
Really? Yeah.
And I still carry that.
It's wild. Like, what do you do? What do you do?
Move on to the next. Like, that's all really you can do, is just move on to the next one and hope it goes better.
Happens.
Yeah. Well, Symone, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for spending this 30 minutes with me. And I hope that for anyone listening that you got to know Symone a little bit better. And yeah, make sure that you all cheer her on in the performances coming up this season. Symone, what are your roles this season? What are you in for the rest of the season?
So this season, I am doing Leontine, an anonymous lover. And then I go away. I go to Virginia Opera to sing Countess and Figaro.
Okay.
And then I come back to sing Micaela and Carmen.
Fantastic. Also, if you're listening from Virginia, also go check her out over there. Symone, thank you again. I hope you have a great rest of your day and the rest of your season. I hope to see you on stage very soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.